So what is 811? Can anyone tell me? Yes, 811 is a federal number that is issued to call before you dig. Now, every state has a one-call center. Texas, we're fortunate enough, we have two. We have Lone Star 811 and we have Texas 811. So when you call 811, you're going to get one of the call centers. Okay? What does the one call center do? We actually mark your lines. Understand, this is a free service. Lots of people think, oh, well, I don't have time for that. Yes, this is something that has to be planned for, but it is a free service. So if you're at home and you're putting in a fence, if you're putting in a tree, if you're doing a garden, then call. But we call 811 because Texas law requires it. It is the law. Bottom line, it is the law. So Keefa, what happens if I'm digging and I hit something and I damage that line and I don't have a one call? Guess what? You're responsible for it. You have to pay for it. Understand, there's hundreds of miles of lines underneath the ground. Lots of utilities. Utilities like water, electricity, fiber optic lines. So fiber optic lines, that includes your 911 lines. That includes internet, cell phones. See, all of these things we use every day for everyday life.
When they come out to get ready to start a job, they usually, best practices are get out to location, take some photos, white line it, make sure you're marking what you want to dig, where you want to dig, and what you want on the ground. Make sure when you call it in that what you wrote on the ground, everything that you've marked of where you're going to be digging, make sure that's on the one call ticket, specifically for what you put on the ground. Because if it doesn't match, then the locators will contact you, operators will get confused, everyone will have issues. Some of the other best practices are taking photos of markers, pipeline signs, telephone pole numbers, physical address, pretty much everything you can think of. Take a picture of it, write it down, whatever. Another thing is white lining it. White line the area you're going to be in, or you can put white flags. Those are some of the other best practices. On the one call ticket, when you call it in, make sure you have good driving directions. Marking it with your GPS, or if it's physical address, make sure we can get a physical address. I always take the address that I'm at, and either one on both sides and the one across the street, because you call into some of these smaller towns, they'll be like, what's that address? I don't see it anymore, it's a different number. Try to just have multiple addresses in that general work area. And then always drop a pin, send it to your operator, that way they know, or your operator that's working is going to be doing the digging and stuff of that nature. We'll always call 811, make sure we notify them and give them their 48 hours. After that, we'll follow another process of no response tickets, just making sure we meet out on location, making sure we meet in our locators, document all that good stuff as a contractor. That protects you and the company. So that's all I got.
We're going to go ahead and move into the right way demonstration. So, how many excavators do we have in the room? Raise your hand. Okay, so what we're fixing to demonstrate for you is what y'all do day to day, right? We're going to talk about the best practices that CGA talks about. We're going to talk about what the Railroad Commission wants you to do. That way you don't get fined, right? So we're going to go through that. So at that point, I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Mike with JD King. We're going to go through the right way. We've got our excavator and our spotter here. They're just going to go through and start that process.
Okay, the guys are going to be getting ready to come to location, talk about what they're going to be doing. Going to be installing a water line. Good best practices, meet on location. Again, take photos, talk about what you're going to be doing. Getting a good eyes on location. Always good idea to white line your area, what you're going to be working in, right on the ground, what you're installing, company with. Then you start looking in your area, see what other line markers are in the area, taking pictures of them, notifying 811, calling, giving your 48 hours. One of the best practices, coming out to location. Again, you can't stress that enough. You have a lot of contractors that have people call them in from the office. Out here, it's hands-on in the field. If you come out, you get a better idea of the location. You always understand it better. Gives training to your operators, to your locators, or the swampers as well.
All right, so line locator extraordinaire Rocky with Alpine High. He's received the call, and what he's done before he's gotten to the site is he's reviewed his maps and drawings. He's called the excavator to make sure that he understands the location of the excavation and what the planned activity is going to be. And he's also looked to see when the start date, when are they going to start digging compared to when the ticket came through. They'll also set up an on-site meeting with the excavator just to make sure that they both understand the expectations. So what they'll do is they'll discuss the location of the underground utilities. So they'll look for pipeline markers that exist. And because Rocky's consulted the maps and the drawings, he knows what to expect from Apache assets.
And as a contractor, meeting your locator on location gives you a better idea. Usually you can walk with them while they're locating. Most companies will not give you depth or any indication. They give you an estimate of within their tolerance zone, which is half the diameter of the pipe plus 18 inches. 18 inches, unless it's poly.
So then the line locator will utilize the line locating machine to determine the approximate center line of the pipeline, and then he'll mark the appropriate color. So remember our national color code. So yellow is a gas line. We could do a pop quiz. What color is potable water? Anyone? Blue, yeah. Okay, what about non-potable water? What color is that? Purple. Also know that the standard for marking is paint on the ground and flags as well to match. The idea, the whole purpose is to make sure that there's no confusion in what direction the pipeline or the underground asset is going. If you're marking along a curve, you mark heavily with flags and paint just to make sure that the excavator really understands where the asset is.
Another good idea is when you see the pipeline coming across as an excavator, I always have my guys taking pictures of it. That way we can have good identification on where it's at. Follow the instructions of the operators. If they ask for 24, 48, some ask for an hour, just depending on how big their area is on crossing their pipelines.
And And same thing on the locator side, taking pictures so that there's documentation of where the line was, where the excavation zone was marked versus where the line was marked is really important. Okay, what is he marking in red? Do you know what red means? Yep. Again, he's doing paint on the ground, flags. Also, there's other items that may be used. So stakes in the ground with written description of the pipeline diameter may be used, and this could be done in an area that maybe the flags don't work. Maybe it's an area that has a high volume of underground utilities, so they want to make sure that it's very clearly communicated what the pipeline or what the asset is and what the diameter is and what the product is. So another requirement that most operators have is that once the excavation has been done and the asset is exposed, we're required to do an inspection on the line to check it. Since it's already exposed for us, it's just a way for us to double check, make sure our coding is okay, that there's no interference with the asset, and those all are documented and then checked during federal and state audits. Okay, so blue, there's also a water line that he's locating now. And just to note, if it was a poly line, so a lot of water lines are poly, we use a metal piece of wire along the poly line because the line locating tool that he uses is picking up a metal. It's detecting a current. And so the poly line can be buried with a trace wire is what we call it. And sometimes the trace wire is not in the diameter, it may be offset a little bit, so just beware when you're digging around poly lines that the trace wire or where it is marked and located may not be the exact location, so again, just dig with care.
As an excavator, always make sure that you check everyone that's on your one call ticket, that you make sure they've cleared, send you a positive response. And if you find someone else that's not on the ticket, make sure you do a no response on it. That's why it's always a good idea to meet on site with the locators, with the pipeline operators, to discuss everything that's going on, what requirements are. I know as an excavator, everything was due yesterday, but I always tell my guys, you're more important to me than the job itself. That way, this training here gives them a better idea of what's going on.
So again, on site, they'll do consultation, make sure there's no question about where the assets are located. They'll also verify what the plan is. What is the plan for the excavation? What are they planning to dig? How deep are they going to go? What potential hazards they may face? Also, from an operator standpoint, what happens is after this conversation, it's all documented. It's sent into a planning situation where the assets are reviewed and even in a approval process so that the excavator knows, hey, yes, that's okay for you to dig or go under or above or around or whatever their plan may be.
Safe excavation, damage prevention. So at the end of the day, our goal is to reduce damages, right? And Keith had talked about it. By reducing damages, we're not impacting that underground facility, right? Whether it's natural gas, whether it's crude oil, water, sewer, telecommunications, fiber optic, we're not getting into that infrastructure, and we're digging safely within that tolerance zone. So you can see the marks, you see the flags, you see the white line, the proposed excavation. You saw what the excavator did from calling 811. You saw that line locator come out and mark those facilities. You saw that pipeline operator come interact with them on scene. So that's the right way. That's the way it happens every day. And several of our operators talked about how those the number of line locates continue to go up. And I think one of the operators said by 170%. In 48 hours is what we're waiting. 48 working hours, so business hours, not including holidays. So when you look at a weekend, that may be more. If you don't get a positive response, again, just keep in mind, you've got to get that, you've got to make those phone calls. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and do the wrong way scenario. So I'm going to turn it back over to Mike with JD King, and he's going to walk through that. Now on this one, it's going to be more of watch and learn and see what they do.
Thank you, Brad. This is what we should not be doing. Again, they're looking at the pipeline markers. Just looking at markers doesn't give you the exact location of the pipe. They are just trying to eyeball it best as possible. And if you notice, the guy putting paint on the ground has a green hard hat. Most oil field companies, that's an indication of a rookie, new guy on location, in training. And sometimes, nowadays with the way work is, everyone needs training more and more. Line was struck. Operator's leaving location. His swamper's disoriented, possibly hurt. Operator's going to call 911, 811.
Okay, at this point, the operator is calling 911. So dispatch is getting information as far as the location and try to find out if anybody's injured. And at that point, usually law enforcement, fire department, EMS start be responding on that. Usually the first person to arrive on scene is law enforcement. What we try to do is we try to find out also as far as any type of weather, what's the wind direction, if it's cloudy and all that. Try to find out how many victims, what kind of injuries. Is there any fire, or is it just gas leaking, or what kind of product is in that pipeline? So once law enforcement gets on scene, their responsibility is to secure the scene. We want to make sure no one gets up to the area because we don't want any more victims as well. So you can see the pipeline operator is trying to go back, telling the officer, hey, let's go get the guy. But like I said, law enforcement's there to keep everybody away from it. So we have fire department is responding, and once they get on scene, they're going to pull up. What fire department usually do is they'll try to get with the pump operator or anybody else, pipeline operator, and try to find out what product is there. Since we have a potential victim, we have to go over and try to rescue them. So if there's no fire, what we're going to try to do is try to rescue the victim for EMS as well. So when fire department, you see the firefighters, they're all fully bunkered up with SCBAs, because the thing is, we don't know what type of product is in this gas, whether it's H2S or what other product is in there. And EMS, when EMS arrives, they're going to kind of stay off as well in the code zone and not come up to the scene because they don't want to contaminate their ambulance as far as if there's any other hazardous products inside this area. So like I said, what fire department's going to do is, since we got a victim, we're always uphill, upwind from the exposed gas. What they're going to try to do is they're going to try to approach the scene and push the vapor cloud away from the victim. That way the firefighters can rescue the victim out of there. And the key thing to remember too is whenever we're on scene or if there's anybody else on scene is we're not the ones responsible for shutting the pipeline because we don't know if we shut the pipeline, we don't know if we're going to cause more harm to us. So that's why we always wait for the pipeline operator, the company to show up, and it's their responsibility to shut it off. So right there, they're kind of pushing the vapor cloud away. Right now, we're kind of simulating. Usually what we do is we'll have the water spraying with a fog pattern, pushing it off, but since we're here inside the Coliseum, we're not going to be actually spraying water for it. So we're just going to be simulating on spraying water, pushing them out. And you can see the firefighters carrying the victim out, and they're going to take them over here to EMS, where EMS is going to take care of them. Now once they get the victim, the fire department's going to back away from the gas. Like I said, they don't want to put it out, or even if there's a fire, they don't want to put that out as well. EMS responsibility is they treat the patient. More than likely, what they'll do is they'll try to call AeroCare, which is an air medic flight, and try to fly them out to Odessa. So after that, once EMS takes care of them, they'll take them off to the hospital, and they'll be off for emergency response.
So, as that first call went into 911 and that excavator started giving more details about where they're at, what's going on, our law enforcement officer arrived on scene. He's giving more information to those folks coming in, just like Jesse said. One of the key pieces is that excavator gives that 911 operator what happened, where they're at, and they start putting those pieces together. Law enforcement arrived on scene. They told them this is an Apache line. Go ahead and make that notification to Apache, and the pipeline operators came and they touched base with that unified command organization that's set up on scene. So as they begin to work through that process, they reach back to their control center and they can have those folks shut in the product remotely, or they may have an operator that's actually going out there and doing the shutdown of the product manually. So as we watch, you'll notice that's going to happen. So the ops center was able to shut down the flow of the product. We got the pipeline operators within the Unified Command organization, and they're talking about mitigation actions, how we're going to work together to resolve this incident. Now, as we look at the emergency responders that are doing patient packaging and get ready to transport this patient, getting prepped for AeroCare or air evac who's coming in, we'll start talking about some lessons learned and some best practices that we've kind of showed you. So going back to what we talked about in the classroom, what is the most important thing that we can do as an excavator when we're getting ready to dig? Say that one more time. Okay, so utilizing the spotter while you're digging, that's a key element, right? In CGA tells us that. So we always want to use a spotter when we're digging. What else? What's the first thing we can do? We call 811, right? By making that notification, we're letting all the folks that are working within that area know that we're going to dig, right? And by making that notification, we're getting that information out to the other utilities and facilities that are in the area to let them know we've got a dig project, right? That brings in the whole team that we just displayed. Thank you to all our folks that helped make this a reality. I want to thank the Pecos County responders from Fort Stockton Fire Department, Pecos County SO, Pecos County Sheriff's Office, Pecos County EMS, Pecos County Emergency Management, TDM, Texas Division Emergency Management. I want to thank all our operators and line locators, so Apache, Plains All-American, JD King, Texas 811. I want to thank DeepWell Energy for being our excavator and spotter and helping us out with the equipment. I want to thank all our Intertech sponsors, Apache and Alpine High Assets, One Oak, InLink, Howard Energy Partners, Plains All-American Pipeline, Centurion, Atmos, West Texas Gas, Delaware Basin, Goodnight Midstream, and if I missed anybody else, we appreciate it. I'm gonna turn